All right. Well, it looks like at this point, no more people coming in. So let's get started here. Thank you all for joining here. I've muted everybody. Feel free to unmute and speak, but there was a lot of noise coming in early on when a lot of people were unmuted. So feel free to unmute if you want to speak up. Please do so, actually. But so my intent is to, normally we do one, we basically have the tournament directors going through a clinic early in the year. That's about it for it. But as things are so uncertain right now, I think it will be good to, on a regular basis, keep doing this till we get into the season, actually, at least one more time in November and maybe once in December, where we can kind of share ideas. We have a lot of people in our region that, are doing some stuff right now, running into some things, having some experiences. So for one, to share that with each other, and from our side to give some updates and also share some thoughts. So if there's anybody has a question about that, let me know. Else I'm just going to get started on some of the subjects that I wanted to address today. Nobody's speaking up. I'll keep talking for now. To begin with, HOA Online. So with this transition to Sports Engine for our registrations, we've run into a lot of snags. The way we have to get data from the system is very different than what we used to get in WebPoint. We need to basically get a lot of information through an API, and that thing was not ready in September, and they keep constantly changing it. So our IT people are pulling their hairs because they constantly have to, they're trying to program to a moving target, and they spend hours and hours and hours, but we're about 3-4 weeks behind for where we normally like to be. But the good news is, since this morning, we are actually now in the office live testing. We can do the downloads, we can get the data. So we're trying to get the last bugs out and probably be live by Monday. So if you've done your individual registration, have your background screen, all that stuff, hopefully by Monday you can start setting up your tournaments in the system. And that there's a few minor tweaks, but it's should be for the returners should be comfortable territory. I mean, it's the system, the tournament management system works the same. HOA Online works the same as it has in the past. So you just go, you log in, you use the same login. When we download your data in, you'll get an email that, for the returners that will just say like, hey, here's your username, what you've used in the past, and you use the same password. So should not be too difficult, and you should be able to start setting up your tournaments. So that's where we are on that. Any questions on that? If you haven't registered in Sports Engine, get that going, because the background screen might take a couple days.
Sorry, when you say you can register tournament, I mean registering the Sport Engine or from a HOA website?
You do your individual registration, your membership with Heart of America in Sports Engine. Mm-hmm. You set up your tournaments in HOA Online.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Bertel, yep. This is Carla at VVAC. And how are we even going to schedule tournaments when we don't even know what rules we have for operating them?
We'll get close. A couple of those things will be addressed here, what we're facing. And there's no 100% answers because things are changing, and it's different. Some of things are different from location to location, but several things will come up. So we'll address that as we go. I'm just now really in the technical aspects of setting up in tournaments, if there's any questions there.
Will there be room to say like what the format of the event is, if it is different, I guess, than it normally would be in the registration process on HOA Online?
Well, you always have the comment section already. So there you can put in like, okay, this is what we're thinking, but of course what we're thinking today, who knows when you get closer to the tournaments. And again, you're walking a little bit ahead of what I have here, but
sorry.
I strongly suggest that, you put in some comments that, okay, formats, maybe depending on whatever we're facing, audience, maybe depending on whatever we're facing, that kind of stuff. And refund policies would probably be good also to state in your comments in your tournaments already before you go live with it. But again, that all depends on how things pan out. For now, what we're seeing in the registration is our numbers are very close to what we saw a year ago. So that tells us that, you know, people are signing up. People want to play. There's teams, a lot of teams out there that want to play. Mainly what we see is the large clubs signing up, is the clubs in the cities. I think the rural areas, we see a lot more wait and see. I expect that we're going to lose membership in those areas. You know, a lot of small clubs might just skip a year, or a lot of those are depending on school gyms, so they have a much harder time to get gyms. So a little bit what I'm picking up there is most likely we lose membership there, but in the cities, I am not seeing it right now. So there's going to be a demand for tournaments. People want to play. We definitely get that message. And I think the people that have been running, you know, leagues and whatever in the fall see the same thing. People do want to play. So if we can get good tournaments out there, I think it will fill up. Actually, there's probably going to be less tournaments available because of facility issues. So the odds of filling tournaments to a reasonable capacity, depending on what you can handle, is pretty good. What really helps is that high school in this area is playing in the fall. That would have been really hard to deal with if that had been in the spring, but luckily we're in a situation where that's not the case. The regions that deal with that, they have a lot more issues than we're going to see. As I mentioned, we're definitely hearing from schools and church gyms that they're not going to be available, so some clubs cannot practice, and I know some tournament directors that will be a major hinder in trying to run tournaments.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Just maybe a suggestion or possibly communication on this. Since we are potentially going to have a lot of changes during the tournament season, sorry, Bree, Elite Volleyball. So usually on HOA Online, when we set up our tournaments for the beginning of the year, we put down what age groups and level we want them to be.
Sure.
In the chance that there's going to be a lot of changes or having to combine leagues and do all that kind of stuff, I guess this is more of a suggestion or inquiry. If either the HOA Online system can be edited by us directly instead of having to constantly, you know, bother you guys, and or having it be potentially an open format. That way we can make those decisions if teams need to get in and they might not be the right level. Again, I don't know if that's going to be necessary, but I'm preparing myself for maximum flexibility.
Right. And, you know, what we've talked about in the previous meeting is like, you know, we got to figure out what works. I mean, it's a whole new ball game, and it's going to be a different day. So yes, there's going to be more flexibility than the normal is. That's for sure. So we're getting there into formats. So the one thing we need to get away from is packing 5 teams on a court. That's too many people, too long for the day. So the suggestions we've made is either run half-day tournaments where you take 6 teams on 2 courts and run 2 waves, or put 4 teams on a court. I think that's 5 teams on the court just gets too many people in too small an area. You get too much camping going on. That's where a lot of problems occur. So we really need to get away from the 5 teams. So my strong suggestion is look at half-day formats on Saturdays, 2 waves, 4 teams on Sundays in a regular tournament setup. We are working on, once we have HOA Online up and get to the point where we can start posting schedules, that a 3-team half-day tournament can be posted there. That's not that complicated to add to it. That's not a standard format that normally in the full-day tournaments was, but that will be added there. So that should be fairly simple to do. the big challenge is when you do a 16 format, what happens if last minute you have a dropout? Now you have 5 teams. Somebody brought up, had a good suggestion that if you do age divisions, where maybe even you do the same age division in morning and afternoon, or close age division where you can pull a team in that plays all day then, rather than just in one wave, that could help to solve some of those problems. We're trying to get a standard together. What if you end up with 5 teams? This is how you should run it. 4 teams, this is how you should run it. Because that's the challenge. 6 teams runs great on 2 courts, but as you all know, you can't always predict what your numbers on the day of the tournament are. And of course, when we have somebody who has a COVID case in their team on Friday and they call you, you don't want them there. You want them to stay home. So that is something to consider. Any questions on that?
Hey, Bertil, this is Teresa Pamato with Kansas Crush. I do have a question. If you do 6 teams, how many matches are they guaranteed for that?
6 sets. So the way to run that is you run 2 3-team pools. So they get 2 matches out of that, 2 2-set matches. You take the numbers 1 and 2 from each pool, and you cross those. That's your final. That's your bracket really. And you play the numbers 3 from each pool against each other 1 match. That way it fits in 5 rounds on your court. So if you start at 8 o'clock, by 1 o'clock you should be able to be done without too many problems. Then if you bring in your second round at 2 o'clock, you can get everybody out and clean up and get the next wave in. And you should be done around 7. I think people will less want to travel anyway. So I think we're going to see more tournaments made up out of local teams, and they will be fine with self-days. A lot where people, when they drive 4 hours, they don't really want to play just 6 sets. But I think for now, that is probably under the current circumstances, you have a lot less people in your gym that way. You get them in and out real quick, and then you get the next group. From a financial perspective, that's an appealing thing too, because basically you put 6 teams on a court for a day. So you make decent revenue.
Bertil, if you're only giving them 6 sets instead of 8, like we normally do, are you recharging them less?
I would, probably about 120, I think would be reasonable. And again, look at it, you add basically a team per court, so your revenue goes up compared to a 5-team on a court for the day. And we've never dictated what you can charge for tournaments, so that doesn't change. My guess would be for a full day, still somewhere around the standard 140, what we've seen, 130 to 150 maybe. And then maybe for a half day, you do like 120 or so. Right now, we're all going to potentially run in higher cost because we have to do some cleaning. We might have to have some more staff to deal with some logistics. I don't think people are going to flinch at $10 or $20 more. They're going to either make the choice we're coming or not. What I want to move on to that is, so our board of directors has approved for this year to allow admissions charge, exactly for some of these reasons that revenue might be down, people are not making money out of concessions, all that stuff. You are allowed to charge an admission up to $5 per person per day. You have to submit that when you set up your tournament. If you start next week setting up your tournaments, you have to make the decision what you're going to charge, if you're going to charge, and how much you're going to charge. So that needs to be public information before the tournament. Once the tournament is approved, you cannot change that. So don't say, no, you're not going to charge. Then you have a whole bunch of teams sign up, and in January say, oh, no, we're going to charge last minute. No, we're not going to accept that. So make that choice. But that option is available mainly for that reason that revenue is going to be a little bit harder to come by this year.
Question.
We are not going to do it for our events.
As far as start dates, I'm sorry if this is going to be another point that you make. When can we start? I mean, next week we can start putting our tournaments in. Mm-hmm. When are they going to be live for them to sign up for?
November 10th.
Okay. So my question on top of that was, with our current situation and knowing what we're dealing with, our club and our facility, we want to start the first week of November with tournaments. And the reason being because we don't know the future. We don't know if we're going to get shut down. We don't know what's going to happen. And right now we already have mandates and things we can deal with. So we were curious if we're able to start much sooner to see how much of a season we can get in before or if we get shut down again.
Good question. I had not given that thought that people want to start that early, so that's good to know. Let me think about that for a sec, Bree, and have that conversation offline. I cannot gauge how much interest there is from teams to play already, and I know the several areas people really don't do their tryouts till that time. But if there's teams ready to play, I mean, for one, you can have scrimmages anyway, as long as everybody's registered and has their stuff together. Should have removed that phone earlier. Yeah, let me think about that for a little bit, and maybe you can provide me some more input of what you expect and what you've talked with other clubs. Is anybody else thinking that direction?
We thought maybe we might start in December.
Right.
That's what I'm thinking too. Because if our teams just start practicing the 1st of November, they're not going to be ready.
Yeah, we're on the books. This is Teresa from Kansas Crush. We're on the books for a December 19th tournament at our school.
Two interesting things there. So that's kind of typical what we see. Early December, the first few tournaments start popping up, and they're a little bit like come and go in a normal season. Like, are they going to go or not? But you had an interesting remark there. You say you're in a school and you can.
Yes, we're at Osawatomie High School, and we for sure are going to be able to go December 19th. I just had a conversation with the superintendent yesterday.
No, I'll be very careful to call anything for sure in this day.
Well, as of right now, he assured me that we're on the books for December 19th. So yeah, so hopefully we'll still be able to do it.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, and we have our 2 private facilities that are both completely ready to go. I mean, they would, other than Misha, obviously we can't do anything with the kiddos until they're done with school. So I just know that a lot of the larger clubs do already have their teams. They already are ready to go, or they have a lot of returning players. Myself, I had most of my teams just return. They didn't want to deal with tryouts and going anywhere with COVID. So they just returned, which isn't normal. I usually have a lot of changeover. But a lot of them are just the same team they played with last year. They just want to get started. And I'm anticipating there's quite a few teams that are going to want to get started. It won't be a lot, but I do anticipate there being a good majority.
Yeah, let's take a look at that. And so facilities, we're going to run in all kind of I've mentioned before. So our own facility in Wyandotte County, we're not allowed to host right now under the current rules. If this carries in January, we might not be able to do anything here. Sports Pavilion in Lawrence, which is the main facility for us, is not renting to outside groups right now, and that could carry on. Our problem could be that it's 20 courts that we typically have almost every weekend during the season. We're not going to have, so those things are challenges. But Johnson County, the gyms there, Oakland, New Century Fieldhouse, they're up and running, and they told us they will be available. Private facilities, I think most of them, they want to make a buck, so they'll be open and available. It's going to be hit and miss all over the region, what is available and what not. There's going to be, I'm fairly confident there's not going to be the number of gyms available that we typically have, but probably not going to have the same number of teams total either. But in what I see in the Kansas City area, there are plenty of teams. So the other thing, a couple other things we're going to run into directly with COVID. I think it's safe to assume right now that anywhere we go, anywhere in the region, masks will be required by anybody coming in a facility and leaving a facility, audience, and I would think coaches. What is going to be different is some places will require that athletes will wear masks and some might not. But I think it's safe to assume that everybody else will be required to wear a mask. So we'll be dealing with that, and we'll have to babysit that. Somebody made a remark this week to me about high school. If they're required to play with it, they cannot have gaiters or anything around their neck, which I think that sounds like good logic to me. I think those things don't stay up very well, and so I think that needs to be regular masks that stick behind the ears and stay around the face pretty good. So that probably will be. Like I said, I'm pretty confident we're going to face that. That's going to be pretty much the standard. The tough one is audience. We're going to face a lot of different things there because that's going to really be determined by local rules and by facility rules. You can say no parents in there. Patty Reynolds had a brilliant idea. It's like let one adult per team come in as the team IT person and film the match and share it with the other parents on like Facebook Live or something like that. I think that's a great idea. Some facilities have cameras in there that they can use. There's a couple of options there if you don't want to have audience in the building at all. In rental facilities, it's sometimes hard to set those rules because the renter might not agree with that, or the owner might not agree with that, or if there's multiple sports in a building, that gets more complicated. So make sure that if you want to go that route, that you really discuss that with the facility owners. Then we see local rules that require no more than 25% occupancy based upon the normal occupancy numbers. If something like that is the case, make sure you check on all your facilities what the rules are, and we know that they can change pretty easily. So again, put a notice on your when you put your tournaments up that what your expectation is, but also that can change. What we are going to be looking at, I think, for mostly our events is do something with a ticketing system where you give every team 20 tickets or so, and that's 20 people can come in. So that includes the team then, or 25, whatever the number is. So you can really control the number of people in there and let the teams decide which parents are allowed to come in. But that way you can control the number of people coming in the building. Of course, that requires extra staff because now you got to check at the door, make sure that only people with a ticket come in. And if you don't charge admissions, we don't really care who has that ticket or if they pass that ticket on, you still limit the number of people that you have in the building. It's a thought, and again, this is going to be different from location to location. If you run a tournament in a huge arena, you can have, if you have 4 courts in municipal arena and you have 50, 70 people per team, it's still not a problem. They can easily spread out. But in our typical facilities, you're going to have to think about what your numbers that you can reasonably have in there that still can maintain distance, that stuff. What we've heard from people that have dealt with it, some of the biggest problems, again, are when teams start camping out, then they huddle together all and they don't spread out anymore. And that's, you have to babysit that, put out notices. We will have some standard notices ready for you guys by the time season comes around that you can adjust, but have some of those basic remarks in there. Just the standard things like wear your mask, wash your hands, keep distance, whatever. And we can specify some of that, like, hey, when you're camping, keep in mind, you keep separated. I've mentioned already a little bit before, when you lower the number of people in there, you're going to have, facility might not be happy with the concessions they sell, and you need to make them aware that they don't buy a whole lot of stuff and then find out that there's no audience. So have good communication with your facilities there. If you're in your own place, that's much easier. But if you are not, then make sure that you're in good communication with the facility owners so they know what's going on. They know what you're going to be doing. Anything on any of those subjects? People want to chime in, please do so. You guys have a lot of experience, so we can share.
What they did at the middle schools here is they had a list of players, and only 2 people per player were allowed to come in. So you could take the roster of the teams and make a check mark, and only 2 people per player could come in if your facility accommodates that. So we didn't have to, you just had to give the player's name. And then of course they had everything else roped off, caution tape on, so that you had to sit 6 feet apart.
Yeah, and some of the other things is you might have to have the information for contact tracing in case a case comes up, and you kind of need to know who's in the building. So if you, like I said, if you let the teams decide that, then they need to know who they are bringing in, who's going to be there. Anybody on that? Any of those subjects? Any thoughts or any other?
Just waiting to see what they say.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, Bertil, being a high school teacher and a coach, I mean, what do you think? I just can't imagine parents allowing, or even, I don't know, their kids playing in a tournament and them not physically there. I mean, just the liability, and I don't know, am I just way off base? Just being a teacher, I just think like that there's an issue there. I don't know. Thoughts?
Well, so you're going to have that stronger with the younger teams than with the older teams.
Yeah.
I think 11, 12-year-olds, yes, the parents are going to be anxious to see at least what's happening. So that's why I really like the idea Patty had. And Patty has done this. She's run leagues without audience in there in the summer. And you know, you might get a little bit pushback, but if they can see what is happening inside,
yeah,
people can accept it. It's a little bit the reason why we're looking at limited audience. So say, okay, here's 20 tickets. And so there's you know, maybe 8 parents are allowed in. But not just grandma, grandpa, and the whole family and whatever. Yeah. But I think for the younger teams, it will be good to allow a few parents in.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't here in Lee Summit. Zoe is in 8th grade now, my daughter, and they did not let anybody participate in the tournaments at all. There was nobody on site other than the girls, and they actually used YouTube Live and set up a wide lens, and we all were able to log into that. So not sure if you guys have used the YouTube or the Facebook Live. I'm sure you have, but both, the quality was actually quite exceptional. And I believe both services are free. And they don't allow anybody in the building. So we have already had to do that in middle school, and the parents then all had basically group me's or whatever, and they could talk to each other while they're watching virtually. And I, as much as I love watching Zoe play, I've never been at the lake laying in bed watching her play a tournament. That was amazing. So I was kind of a fan of all that.
Cool.
I think a big part is communication. You know, that's why it's good to let people, if you can up front, know, like, this is what you can expect. This is how we're going to do it. And then you either make the choice to come or come not. We've done over the summer beach tournaments, and we didn't let parents in. Of course, they sit in the parking lot and can look through the fence, but people were too happy to be able to play, you know. So what's going to happen a little bit with all these things, when we start the season, everybody's going to abide by all the rules without a problem. When you get a couple weeks in, people start pushing back more, you know, because nothing has happened. So now they think it's okay to let them in or whatever. So that's a little bit we're all going to be fighting. But I've definitely had over the summer several club directors like, can we play always? Can we do indoor without parents? It's great. As a tournament director, it would definitely in some ways make your life easier. That's for sure too. So, but there's some, I think it's doable, and I think it's, again, good communication and give them opportunity to watch what's happening, because that's, yeah, they are going to be concerned about that. If they're totally blind, you're going to have a problem.
Bertle, do you think that when we fill out the tournaments, we can just say audience TBD, depending on the situation at hand that we're dealing? Since
or
we're
just
signing
putting comments right away, like we may not let audience in, depending on what the situation is we're facing there. Be prepared. Yeah, I think it would be good. The more we get out up front that this could happen, then the less they can complain that they didn't know. And if they then don't want to sign up for your tournament, then so it be. You know, they'll have to make choices. Okay, one of the really difficult ones, I've been in several meetings with qualifier directors nationwide and whatever, and the big one that nobody has a good answer for, but we need to figure out some policy is, what do you do when during the day of a tournament you find out that somebody has tested positive and is out there? Do you send the player home? Do you send the whole team home? Do you end the tournament on the spot? I don't have a good answer. I'd love to be still like, oh, sure, this should be happening this way. But it's something we all need to think about. This could occur. We'll emphasize that nobody should be sending their kid there that one has tested positive or has had a test and doesn't have a result back. They should not be there, but you cannot count on those parents all being that way and being that responsible. So it is a possibility that during a tournament a kid finds out that, like, oh, actually I have COVID, by the way. So who all do you send home? That's kind of the question. My sense is team, and again that will be in the notes. But I don't know if you need to send everybody home that every team that's been playing against or not. So I don't know where you draw that line right now. But it's definitely a concern we need to face.
Just out of curiosity, are players how many of you are requiring your players to wear masks during play?
We are, all the time.
We are too.
And put that in your notes.
We are 100%.
I think it's good.
We are 100%.
We are not, and our league play, kids have to wear masks, parents have to wear masks all the time, but once they're on the court, they don't have to. But we're also playing outside, by the way.
Oh.
We did it the entire high school season, and so we're going to do it during the club season. Kids are used to it now. That's kind of what we've set the norm, so that's what they're used to it.
Well, and if we could make that a policy for our region, it would be so much nicer than constantly competing over, our facility allows everybody to come and our facility allows no masks in our facility. And that's just not safe for them to do that and then come to my tournament the next weekend where I don't have spectators. I require masks. I don't know if that's a possibility for us as a region to say, hey, these are some basic policies we're going to hold.
Bertle, you were talking about the player. If a player comes down with it, if the players are playing in masks, then it's only a 2 to 3% chance that it's been contaminated. Whereas if they don't have the mask on, because I ended up sitting next to somebody on a Monday that came down with it on. The problem is there's such a lapse between, it's 8 to 10 days before you know.
Right.
So we're going to wear masks, but I think if you just eliminate the player that is sick because of their masks.
Yeah, what I've seen a little bit though from the play with masks is they don't always just stay on that well. Half the time they're halfway, their nose is hanging out and whatever. But I'm in favor of it. Don't get me wrong. Sue, do you have an opinion there? Did you fall asleep, Sue? Come on.
In Wichita and the surrounding areas, they don't have to wear a mask while they're playing on the court. High school in my league.
Sorry, Bertle. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I couldn't get it unmuted. I'm technologically challenged. I'm going to be honest with you. Around here, even the high schools, we're playing pretty full on, and the kids are not wearing the mask as they play. They will have them with them so that going to sub in and go back to the bench, they put them on. but when they're actually on the floor, they do not wear them.
Yeah, so and that's a little bit the challenge. If we set according to the most stringent rules in the region anywhere, we're going to have, you know, a lot of restrictions.
Yeah.
Actually, you can't play. So,
Well, you know, what I worry about is danger. You know, it's just, I mean, is somebody gonna? I don't know. Is there a chance of it hurting them? I don't know. You know.
Well, that's actually a very fair point with the wearing of the mask and the athlete in general. I mean, some things that we can also add to it is additional timeouts. Like if instead of having 2, I know that might elongate a little bit, but maybe if we need to have masked breaks, I mean, we want to make sure that we are allowing them to play. We want to play, but we don't want to have, and I 100% agree with Patty, 1 to 2% if they're all wearing masks. So now we don't got to shut our whole day down because they were wearing masks the whole time. But maybe for safety and breathing, maybe coaches can have, emergency timeouts for breathers or additional timeouts. I don't know.
So one of the things we've done in our facility here, with practices here, we can't host competition, but we put a final cover of over all our nets. So you can see through it, but you can't spit in each other's face. For the people that are, I know that's hard for people to do that rent facilities occasionally, but the people that are in their own facilities, that might be something to consider. We can give you some more information how we did it. Just another way to get, avoid some contamination possibilities.
And I'd be very interested in that, Virgil.
Sure.
That's super smart. Yeah, that's super smart. I didn't even think of that one.
Well, we actually stole the idea. We didn't come up with it. I won't take credit for that. But K-State was actually practicing that way with masks on, and they had final cover over net, and we're like, hey, we're going to look at that. So if it's good enough for Big 12, I think it's good enough for juniors.
That's great. I love that idea.
Yeah, send that out to everybody, would you please?
Sure. All righty.
Bertel, are we also going to not switch sides during the match? You get on one side and you stay on that side?
Yeah, I want to say I've had that 100% decided, but I think that is also a good idea. And most facilities, that is not really a problem. And yes, that I do like that idea. Because then too, if you have some audience, we don't get the audience crawling around. I think we should do that always, actually, but I thought it was a volleyball to get rid of the switching sides in the deciding set, because then we don't have to learn the whole damn third set score sheet anymore, which might make life so much easier.
Yay! I'm with you.
Yeah.
Of course, they won't listen to me because there's one gym somewhere in the USA where the sun comes in and it's a problem. Yeah.
So I'm willing to share. I'm going to do the 3-team charge 110 to 120 range. And I haven't decided about what audience I'm letting in, but I just thought if we all shared, we'd kind of know where everybody else was so that we knew ballpark where we needed to be.
You mean tournament entry fee?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm thinking like in the same range, 110, 120 for half day, 140 for full day as we did last year.
And, some of I will share, like, if you need a team or somebody else needs a team, I think if we contact one another and go, hey, I need a team last minute, or I need a team next week or whatever, I think if we're more flexible, that all of us will be able to make the tournaments go better.
Bertel, I like that idea of being able to share. Is there some way that you could generate like a email group or something like that we could be able to just shoot that out, an email out to everybody, all the tournament directors?
Something. Let me think about. I'll put Kyla on that. She's much better at that area than I am. She's
probably on the phone working on Sports Engine.
Yeah, the non-sports engine. or the sports broken engine? Which one you want?
Exactly. Next time we want to vote on something like that.
I wish I could vote on it too.
Somebody got some money somewhere.
Okay, anybody who wants to bring up anything else? That's all I had on my list. And again, I'm looking at, a couple weeks again.
I just have a question.
Yep.
On how, if we run a morning and an afternoon, then we register them as two separate tournaments, like tournament morning for this date, tournament afternoon for this date. And so then if somebody wants to play in both morning and afternoon, they could technically register for both?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Bertle, what about Sundays when we've been having to quit earlier? Are you going to give us permission, those of us that run Saturday and Sunday, are you going to give us permission to end at 7 if we agree to do 14s or older?
Yes. And a little bit the thought process again is too, we're going to get more of the local teams that are going to play. I think there's going to be less travel. I mean, there'll be some, but there's going to be less travel. So the time I'm afraid to give you guys a free hand and thinking that that's going to be for the future, but for this year, yes.
What time would an afternoon wave start?
2.
2.
Now, a thought could be to, if you start like 7:30 in the morning, you could start 1:30 and you could be done.
Well,
you'd be around 6 if you really push forward.
Our facility is allowing us to use, we had already kind of brought this idea up to them to having the AM and PM wave, but are we able to start later? Reason I ask is because they're wanting to piggyback with some of their activities and saying, hey, you can have evenings starting at 4 o'clock. Are we going to be able to do that, or is it going to be strictly a 2 p.m. start?
On a Sunday, I would have a problem with that, but on Saturday.
Just Saturday. Yeah, just Saturday.
I don't really care if they want to start 4. Again, it's communication as long as you get the information out, clearly out what they should expect. But if they want to play from 4 to 9 o'clock, I don't have to.
And this is another question, just because of your expertise and your wide range. Have you heard anything about the larger events? Since I'm not anticipating there being a lot of travel, but there's a lot of clubs and a lot of regions that are still saying we're going to do everything the same as always. And I'm trying to calm my parents down who are saying, well, everybody's traveling. I don't think that's going to be a thing. Have you heard anything about the larger tournaments?
Well, some of the, so one of the things, and we kind of got to project what we know now on several months out. But one of the things we're going to run into is a bunch of states require quarantines if you travel from a certain state or to a certain state. So that's going to affect a lot of travel. Illinois I don't see them doing any major events this year. Windy City has moved from early April because McCormick was already like, you can't host it. Now they're late April, so they have a little bit more time. Maybe they can. I know Denver is a problem for Crossroads. They're looking around what their options are because they think they're already shut down in Denver. It's not firm, but they haven't definitely been told that the chances are not very good. But the other side of the coin is we opened registration for our MLK event and we had 200 teams on the first day, which mainly are driving distance teams. I think the flying are hesitant, but we have teams from California signed up in the 18s qualifier. So I don't know if you can throw a blanket over it of what it is, but I do think people are more comfortable driving than flying. So for the larger events, I expect teams are going to stay closer to home. But a couple hours drive, people will come in.
And you think you'll be able to have MLK?
Under the current conditions, we could host it with about 250 teams. That's, last year we had 350, so we're getting close to full already, but that's the current conditions. That come January, it might change, but that's where we are right now. And that's spreading out courts, having less courts in the convention center, and limiting number of people that can come in, etc.
For the facilities that you're looking to rent for large events, what kind of precautions are you planning on taking for like Keeper of the Plains or something where there's a lot of courts in one building? What's your like?
Yeah, potentially limiting the courts you use, limiting number of people you bring in. So again, some of those are a struggle when you have multiple activities, like like New Century. When you have a soccer field in there too, you need to talk with the facility. Like you limit the number of people, but then they get a boatload of soccer people in there, you still have a problem. So it's a little bit from facility to facility. How much space is there? How tight is the facility? And again, limiting the number of people in it.
Sorry,
hangout spaces there, all that kind of stuff. Format to do with. Yep.
Sorry, I have a question. You're talking about MLK. You just started to register already for the tournament?
Yes.
MLK.
Yes. That's the first.
Is registered Sport Engine or?
Their brother, AES.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Okay, got it. Okay.
So, anybody else? Anything to contribute or ask? All righty. Well, then
Sorry, one more question.
Yep.
You said we would get an email that says, like, this is what your username is, this is what, or use your most recent password for HOA Online when it is ready, or we'll just get that if we ask for it?
No, when we load the data from Sports Engine into HOA Online, that automatically gets triggered. So probably somewhere on Sunday, hopefully.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
So at that time, will there be like, I looked a couple weeks ago to try to make sure I got all my stuff done for tournament directing so I could enter my tournaments, to host. Is that stuff available now? The training?
Oh, no. No, and we're not going to hold up people on that because part of our problem is that we first had to get HOA Online up. Now, then the next focus is going to be the learning management system, because on top of changing registration systems, we also have a new learning management system, which actually I think that's going to be very good. That's going to be a huge improvement. But again, that's not up and running yet. So we're not holding people to that before they can move on.
So so you said it's available to start putting tournaments in that we're hosting by next week.
Yes, and we'll start approving them as soon as we can. We're not going to hold you up. In the past, we would not approve until you've done the tournament director clinic, but since it's not available, we're not going to. We need to get rolling. I really wish we had already been up and running, because we get a lot of calls from people that are like, is there going to be a season? We don't see tournaments. What's going to happen? So we can put people at ease when they start seeing, hey, this tournament's actually popping up. There's going to be probably a season in some form or format. It'll put a lot of people at ease. So I want you guys to start setting up those tournaments and get them out to the public. So we'll do what we can there. Okay. There's nothing else, then again, I thank you for your time and your input, and we all learn from each other, so that's great. And again, I'm looking at doing this again in November when we get closer, and we'll go from there. And Bree, we'll talk a little bit about early November. Okay.
And you're going to take care of an email that we're all on so that we can communicate with one another.
Kailash. She's on the call here, so.
Okay.
Oh, hey, thank you. This has been good, Bertle. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.